Hello! Welcome back. Today, as promised, we have another clothing tutorial, and this time I'm going to be showing you how to make a hoodie for your dolls. I decided to mix things up a bit with this video by using a Rainbow High doll as our model instead of the usual Barbie. However, as always, I will be showing you how to take your own measurements to draft your own pattern so you can use whatever doll you like. So I have my skinny tape measure here, as well as some paper and a pencil to mark down my measurements. So I'm going to start, first of all, with the neck measurement. I'm just going to wrap the tape measure all around her neck to find the circumference. And that comes out to me to be about 4.5 centimeters. Then I want to measure the distance from her neck to her shoulder joint here. And that is pretty much spot on 1 centimeter for me. Now I'll measure her arms. The first measurement will be the circumference of her upper arm here, which is 3.5 centimeters. Then we want to know the length of her arm, so I'll just run the tape measure from this shoulder joint all the way to her wrist joint, and that is 6 centimeters for me. And then the last measurement for her arm is her wrist circumference, and that comes out at about 2.5 centimeters. The next torso measurement I want to take is the chest, and this includes the bust, so you're going to want to make sure that your tape measure goes over the top of the widest part there, all the way around again, and for me that is 10.5 centimeters. Now is also when you want to figure out how long you want your hoodie to be. I want this one to be full length, so I will just measure the length of her torso from the base of her neck all the way down to the top of this leg joint here, and that's about 6 centimeters. Because I want her hoodie waistband to sit about here, the next thing I'll need to measure is the widest part of her hips, and that comes out to me to be 14 centimeters. I think those are all the measurements we are going to need for now, so we can move along to translating them into a pattern. First of all, you're going to want your neck measurement, which was 4.5 centimeters for me. I'm going to divide that by 2 because this pattern piece only needs to make up half. So that comes out at 2.25 centimeters, which we're going to measure with our ruler, making a mark at 0 and another at 2.25. Then we'll just sketch a semicircle between those 2 marks, and we have our neckline. Next, we want our shoulder width measurements, which was 1 centimeter for our Rainbow High doll. So I'll be drawing a 1 centimeter line out from either side of the neckline. It's also good to give this line a little bit of a downwards trajectory so that the shoulder seam is a little bit diagonal. The next thing to do is measure your armholes. My upper arm measurement for my doll was 3.5 centimeters. So I'm going to divide that in half again, just like I did with the neck measurement, and that gives me 1.75 centimeters. Now, I don't want my hoodie sleeves to be super tight fitting or anything, so I'm going to round that up to 2 centimeters to give our doll some extra room. We're going to add this into our pattern by just measuring 2 centimeters directly down from the outer parts of our shoulder seam lines. And we'll make a mark just there. Do this for both sides. And next we shall need the bust measurement. This was, I believe, 10.5 centimeters for our Rainbow High doll, which once again I'll divide in half to give us 5.25. That tells us that the bottom parts of our armholes need to be 5.25 centimeters apart. So I'm just going to draw a horizontal line of that length right here on the armhole markers. And we want to make sure that the center point of this line is directly below the center of our neckline so that we will have an even amount on both sides. Then we're just going to sketch ourselves another curve, this time connecting the outer part of our shoulder seam all the way down to the outer edge of the underbust line. Repeat this on both sides. Now you need to find out where your waistband is going to be. You'll need your torso length measurement for this. Mine was 6 centimeters. So I'll measure 6 centimeters directly down from the center of the neckline and make a mark. This is where the waistband will sit. You're now going to take your hip measurement, which was 14 centimeters for me, and divide it in half again. That gives me 7 centimeters, which means that is how long the bottom line of my hoodie pattern needs to be. Again, we'll be ensuring that the midpoint of this line lines up nicely with the center of our neckline. And then we just draw a straight horizontal line along here. As you can see, this flares outward again. So we're just going to sketch ourselves another little gentle curve out from the end of the bust line measurement to the ends of the hip line measurement. And now you have the torso piece of your pattern. Now, if you have a doll like a Barbie with a more proportionate head, then your hoodie can just consist of 2 of these torso pieces sewn together. However, if you aren't able to pull the hoodie on over your doll's head like a human would, you'll need to have a split in the back with Velcro. That's what I'm going to need for this Rainbow High doll, since her head is extremely large. In order to make a pattern for these 2 back panels, I'm just going to trace half of our front panel and then add about an extra centimeter onto this flat edge here. This is going to give us enough space for the Velcro to overlap. You might also want a pocket for your hoodie. And you don't need measurements for this, just sketch an approximate shape and size that you want it to be onto your main torso piece like this. Then use your second piece of paper, lay it over the top and trace it. And that is your pocket pattern. The next pattern piece will be the sleeves. Each sleeve consists of 1 pattern piece, so we won't need to halve our measurements this time. We'll just take our upper arm measurement, 3.5 centimeters, and draw a vertical line that length. Then we'll measure a horizontal line from the center of that line, which needs to be the same length as our arm. That was 6 centimeters for me. And then when you get to the other end, you'll want another vertical line, this time the same length as your wrist measurement. That was 2.5 centimeters for me. Then it's pretty much a case of connecting the dots. Now we have sort of an uneven-ended rectangle, but the armholes in the torso piece are curved. So the top part of our sleeve pieces need to be curved as well so that they fit. The top part of this curve has got to be level with this line here, and it needs to curve down and out. So we need to find out exactly where the end of that curve is going to end up. To find that out, we've got to go back to our armholes. Remember how mine were 2 centimeters down from the end of the shoulder seam? I'm going to take that 2 centimeter measurement again and apply it here. So the end of my curve is going to be 2 centimeters down from the top of the curve, which is about there. So I'm just going to sketch myself a nice gentle curve from the top there all the way down to that mark we made at the 2 centimeter point. And then I'm going to do the same on the other side, smooth out my curve a little bit, and then we're going to kick this curve out at the ends so that it goes a little bit past the straight lines we drew earlier. And that's because I want my sleeves to be a little bit looser to go along with the wider armholes. And then I'm just going to draw another line back to the wrist point, and that will be our sleeve pattern. I'm just going to go ahead and erase any extraneous lines so that I don't confuse myself when I am cutting these out later. Next, we're going to need pattern pieces for our sleeve cuffs and our waistband. These are the easiest because they are just rectangles. The waistband will be one long piece, so we'll need our entire hip measurement, which was 14 centimeters for me. I'm going to make my waistband 1 centimeter wide, and then just complete the rectangle. For the cuffs, it's the same process, except it's the whole wrist measurement, which was 2.5 centimeters, 1 centimeter wide again, and complete the rectangle. Now, you might be wondering, where does the hood part of this hoodie come into play? Well, the reason I haven't mentioned that yet is because it is a little bit more complicated, so please bear with me. I'm obviously making this hoodie for a rainbow high doll, but their heads are so large that a functional hood would have to be huge, probably the same size as the hoodie itself. I think that might look a little silly, so in order to get the measurements for my hood, I actually took them from an Ever After High head, because one of my custom dolls has an Ever After High head on a Rainbow High body, and it tends to look a lot more proportionate. So here I have a spare blank Ever After High head, and this is what I'm going to show you how to measure. If your doll does have a proportionate head, you can just measure theirs in this same way. So first, I'll measure the distance from their forehead all the way round the back of their head to their neck hole. That is 9 centimeters for me. And then I'll measure from just in front of their ear round to the center back of their head. That is 4.5 centimeters. So to sketch our hood pattern, we're going to start with a vertical 9 centimeter line. And then from the center of this line, we're going to measure 4.5 centimeters out to the side. Make a mark just there. Then at the bottom of our line, we're going to take our half neck measurement, which was 2.25, and measure that distance out from the bottom. This time you're going to draw a horizontal line to match. Then you're going to draw a long curve connecting this 2.25 centimeter point to your 4.5 center point, and then all the way to the top of your 9 centimeter line. And that is your hood. That makes all of our pattern pieces now, so we can go ahead and cut them out. I've got all of my pattern pieces cut out now and labelled, and that means I can go ahead and pick out some fabric. I have this t-shirt I'm going to recycle, and I would highly recommend thrifted t-shirts as a fabric source for your doll's clothes. They are super easy to come by, they're always in so many colours and super affordable. I got this one for £1 on Vinted, and I've already managed to make several doll items from this, with loads left over, as you can see. Stretch jersey is perfect for this hoodie, and one of the main things I wanted was this ribbed knit at the top here. Lots of t-shirts have this around the neck, and it is exactly what we need for our sleeve cuffs and our waistband. You want the direction of stretch to be out to the sides and not lengthways. My fabric mainly stretches in this direction, so I shall lay my pattern piece like so, and then continue this for all of them. As you can see, I have traced all my pattern pieces now. You're going to want one front piece, one pocket, 2 back pieces, which I flipped the pattern for in between so that these are in reverse of each other, 2 hood pieces, I did the same for them, and 2 sleeves. You have probably also noticed that I haven't included any seam allowance up until now, and that's because I like to add my seam allowance when I'm cutting out my pattern pieces, so I have made sure to leave plenty of space for that around my tracings. The reason I like to only add seam allowance after tracing is because I can then use my traced lines as guides for where to sew. Now we can move on to sewing. I have my needle threaded here with some nice matching thread, and the first thing we want to do is sew the front piece of our hoodie to the 2 back panels along the shoulder seam. We have our first back panel lined up on that seam, good side to good side with the main panel, and I'm just going to backstitch along this line that we drew for ourselves when we were tracing. Repeat for both sides. And now we can move on to attaching the sleeves. This part is a little bit more complicated, so bear with me, but essentially we're going to be slotting the curved top part of our sleeve piece into the curved shape we have created between the front panel piece and the back panel piece at the sides here. However, they will have to be good side to good side, so when you're sewing, the sleeve will be facing the opposite way, so that when you are finished sewing, you can flip it right side out and have a nice clean edge. I like to make sure that my sleeve piece is centered by folding it in half lengthways and then placing the fold on top of the shoulder seam that we sewed earlier, so that when I unfold it, I know I'm right in the center. And then I just get my needle and I go up through the shoulder seam, out through the center of my sleeve curve, and then I continue to backstitch all the way down this side, making sure to keep turning your sleeve piece as you go so that you stay on the curve. And return to the center point, and then just repeat down the other side of our curve. Now we have our first sleeve attached. I repeated that for the second sleeve, and now we want to add our cuffs. It's important to do this now while the sleeves are still flat. So we just take our cuff piece, lay it good side to good side with our sleeve, matching up these raw edges here, and then sew a zigzag stitch all the way along that edge. Now, a zigzag stitch is exactly what it sounds like. And then you just continue the zigzag all the way to the opposite end. Now, as you remember, we cut our cuff piece a little bit shorter, so we're just going to pull it tight and try to hold that in place as we continue to zigzag all the way to the end. The good part of zigzag stitch is that the seam can continue to stretch even after it has been sewn. And we have ourselves a nice little stretchy cuff. Once we have both sides done, we can go ahead and sew up the side seams, which you do by just folding it good side to good side, so your hoodie is essentially inside out. Make sure that the raw edges are all nicely lined up. And then we go ahead and backstitch from the end of the cuff all the way along our traced line until we reach the armpit, and then down the side seam of our torso pieces. Now with both sides done, I have turned it back right side out, and we have a pretty nice little jumper forming. The next thing that we're going to do is attach our pocket. So, first of all, what I'm going to do is snip some tiny notches out of these curves just up to the seam allowance line. And this is going to make the curves a lot easier to fold in and make a nice clean edge. Then I'm going to use a little bit of fabric glue and just spread it onto the edge of our pocket here and fold in our little notches. You can go ahead and top stitch along this curve. However, I personally am going to skip that step for now. Next, we take this top edge and we place it on our hoodie upside down. You want to make sure that it's at the right height on the hoodie, that when you fold it back on itself on the seam allowance, your raw edges line up. You make sure that your pocket piece and your hoodie front are good side to good side, and then you just sew on our traced line. So that means when you turn your pocket down, you get a lovely clean edge here. And then this bottom edge will remain free for now because that gets secured at the same time as the waistband. The next thing to tackle is the hood. So place our hood pieces good side to good side, match them up along this curved edge here, and then just backstitch along that line, starting from the top. Now, if you are going to have your doll pull the hood on over their head without any closure in the back, you can go ahead and sew all the way down along that line to the flat edge here. However, since I do need to use a back closure, I am going to stop just here where the curve begins to flatten out again. I'm also going to turn in our front seam on the hood to give a nice clean edge, and I am going to use fabric glue for this. You could definitely just top stitch this if you would prefer. Now that your hood is in one piece, you're going to want to attach it to your hoodie pretty much like you would any other kind of collar. Holding your hood upside down, you're going to want to place the flat front edge so that it is directly in the center of your neckline. Make sure your hood piece is good side to good side with your hoodie. Line them up along their raw top edges and then just backstitch them into place all the way along your traced line. Repeat for both sides, and if you are dealing with an open back like I am, you'll be left with these tabs of excess fabric at the ends. Don't worry about these, they'll be the amount of overlap you've got for your Velcro. All you have to do is get your fabric glue again and use it to turn over all your raw edges down the sides of your tabs, along the tops, and that back gap in the hood that we left open earlier. And now you have your hood. We are super duper close to being done now. We just have to attach our waistband and our Velcro. The waistband is done exactly like we did with our cuffs, except I'm just going to turn in the short raw edges with some glue ahead of time. And now we have a nice clean end. Then we just place them good side to good side, matching up along the raw bottom edge, and then zigzag stitching all the way along it. When you get to your pocket, just make sure that the raw edge of that is also lined up with the raw edges of the hoodie and waistband, and then sew through it just the same in order to connect it. Flip it down to see your nice clean edge, and there you go, a full hoodie. Finally, I'll place my Velcro on the back tabs, sew them into place, then put your hoodie onto your doll. I am pulling the head hole up over her body because her head is so large. Velcro in the back. And you are done! A whole finished hoodie for your doll, complete with functional pockets and a gap in the back of the hood that you can put your doll's hair through so that it lies flatter. I hope that this tutorial was helpful, and if it was and you enjoyed this video, I would very much appreciate a like and maybe even a subscribe, and thank you so much for watching. Bye!